Um, and we're going to jump into this. A little bit of housekeeping first, as always. I've timed this out to last about 30 to 45 minutes. I'm going to try to leave time at the end for questions. Feel free to put them in the chat. When we get to the end, I can turn your microphones on if you don't feel like typing. Otherwise, throw your questions in the chat as we go along, and I'll check those when we get to the end. You will get the recording for this just as soon as it is available. I will get it downloaded. You'll get an automated email, I believe. And then I will send up a follow-up email as well. There are some resources I want to give you. Hopefully you all got the email with the quick start guide in it. If not, I'll give you a URL at the end to go grab that, and we will get on with the show. So by the end of this session, we're going to cram a whole lot of big information into a very short time frame, because I think most of you already have a little bit of experience, especially working with AI tools. So some of this is not going to be new for you, but it is a system that can help you pull everything together and really maximize what you get out of your AI. It'll help you keep your messaging and your brand consistent. It will really save you a ton of time. And why a knowledge base? I should probably start first with what is a knowledge base. Knowledge base is essentially a collection of your examples of your voice, of your brand story, of your core identity, your voice and tone, basically anything that your employees know about your business or that you know about your business. It gets collected into a set of content that you can then train your AI tool on custom. And it basically, what I've found is it makes AI actually useful. You get things in your own voice. For the most part, I still wouldn't say just throw it out into the world without taking a look and editing and that kind of thing. And the reason I really love it is it helps turn, especially ChatGPT, but any of those chat-enabled AI tools into more of a brainstorming partner. We've had really interesting results from small business owners, which is why I'm framing this for entrepreneurs and small business people who are able now to really spend more time strategizing and putting energy into their business because they're not having to deal with it. I need 3 social media posts this week and I don't know what to write about. They use the knowledge base and their chat tool to really help you leverage what's good about AI and speed things up. Also, you can probably get a little tip on how I feel about untrained AI. The knowledge base will really help combat that icky generic content that's out there, which is, frankly, for those of us in branding, marketing, communications, is doing everyone a disservice and is doing your business a disservice too. So I needed a way to not get that kind of information out of our AI. I've been working with AI since, I don't know, 2 years now. I started early on when you still had to train using a database and a spreadsheet and 5,000 examples. And I am happy to say that this is so much easier. And I think really an efficient way to do it, a useful way to do it. And like I said, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a business owner, if you're have all of that knowledge in your head, you can do this piece of cake. It's just a matter of getting shown how, I think. So we're going to go over 6 steps. We're going to talk, first of all, some really core kind of brand work or knowledge about your business. We're going to talk about defining your core identity, your voice and tone, creating a messaging framework that can help AI really start from a place of knowledge about how you speak and what you talk about. We're going to look at defining your ideal client, that's nothing new. And then the last two sections are really about organizing it so that it's ready um, to get handed to your tool in a way that it can make use of and not get confused. And this is just my little, I know there's 6 steps, but don't freak out. We're going to go step by step. And this is the quick start to this. So I promise to make it as little bit painful as possible, as little pain as possible in it. So step 1 is defining your core identity. You'll notice, those of you who maybe aren't in marketing or branding, I obviously am going to use phrases that I understand, but really core identity is where you write down what you understand about who you are and what you stand for. So, like I said, if you're a business owner, this stuff is in your head. When you're thinking about how you explain what your business is or what you do to somebody who loves you, this is that kind of stuff. If it's a personal brand, like you are the face of your brand, you know this even better. So you want to start by writing it down. It's all in your head. I need you to write it down so you can share it with AI, with other people as you grow and need to bring on staff. This is another benefit of a knowledge base, is that it does make onboarding new employees or spreading your brand out to vendors and that kind of thing a lot easier if you keep it updated as you go. So what words describe you? What is your why? Why are you doing this? What do you want to accomplish? How do you want your audience to feel? A little formula, if you've never done this kind of work, if you don't already have it on hand and documented, you can use the formula as a thought experiment. I plus the action for your audience so they can achieve some result. So I empower creatives to simplify their work so they can focus on their passion projects. That's your first step. Find yourself a core phrase and then add as much detail as you can in descriptive paragraphs. So a couple other examples. Fitness coach might pick the 3 words empathetic, energetic, direct, and their statement. If they have a little bit of a differentiated business, you want to make sure that you get that in there too. This is a fitness coach who comes to someone's office to help them at lunchtime or in their spare time. So I offer in-office training sessions to busy professionals to help them reclaim their health so they can excel in every area of life. So like I said, write it down. It's in your head. If somebody asks you why you started your business, what you want to accomplish, how you want to relate to people, and what you help people do, it's in your head. Write it down. Write down as many descriptive words as you can and as much of that why statement as you can. Step 2 then is thinking about the personality of your brand, how you speak to the world. Are you particularly funny? Are you very professional? Kind of depends perhaps on what the industry you're in or what differentiated voice you're trying to bring to your industry. Again, pick some single words, pick some particular single words that you like as tone traits, and again, write them down. So this is a good place to start thinking about and using as your kind of explanation statements. Think about your core values and your beliefs. Anything that you think should be obvious when your content is read, write it down. The thing about AI is that, obviously we all know it's been trained on the entire internet. What you need is something that's been trained specifically on you and your information. And you absolutely can do this just by working with your tool and having, many communications. It will learn your style, it will learn your voice, but it will take you 6 months to get to a place where it starts to surprise you. Maybe 3 if you use it pretty much on a daily basis for a lot of different kinds of tasks. So this is a huge shortcut. Nobody's got time to spend 3 months being frustrated by by AI that doesn't understand what you do for a living and talks about it exactly like your competition does. We're trying to get away from that and really help it be a tool that speeds things up for you the way it promises that it will, um, instead of slowing you down, wasting your time, and frustrating you. So, and a little example for tone and voice. Tech consultant who doesn't want to be overly jargony will write an explanation of balancing professionalism with a conversational tone, give it some more approachable phrases like let's demystify tech instead of jargon alternatives. So again, really think how you want AI to talk about you, what you want it to know, and provide that to it. And blessedly, you no longer have to provide it with 5,000 examples of anything. A one-page document with a couple of, well, one-page document with sort of 200 character paragraphs on it that describe things, as long as they're concise, well structured, and you explain what they are, will get you where you need to go. So then step 3, this is really where you may need to do a little research on yourself. So what you're looking for here is 2 to 3 themes that you usually emphasize or that you want to emphasize. Sometimes this means, if you haven't thought about it much, going back and reading any content you or your business has produced, those guides you put out in the world, your social media content, your blogs, even down to, capabilities, presentations, whatever you use to frame your messaging that you repeat a lot. You want to write that down, explain what it means to you, not just the dictionary definition, but a lot of times alignment is going to mean something very different from a general sense or from the information that's already out in the internet. You want to define what these themes are to you. List any phrases that you might use, and then really think about your differentiated point of view and include that, so that your AI can understand how you look at a particular topic, what you think about it, what stance you take on it. Otherwise, it's going to default to generic. It's going to use phrases like people say that, not we believe that this is the way to accomplish this thing, or that this can happen if you X, Y, and Z. So be as specific as you can, and that's how you're going to get better content. It will learn from the points of view you have. It will start to make educated associations. And we're going to get to a point later where we're going to be very specific about asking AI to ask you clarifying questions, rather than inventing things, because it will. I think we've all probably been there. So then again, easy example, sustainability advocates themes might include eco-friendly practices, community impact, emerging alternative energy solutions. And I'm going to want them to define, okay, to you, what are eco energy practices? How do people go about them? How do they feel about them? What kind of community impact are you trying to make? How do you feel about, solar, wind? Let's get specific. And then common phrases that you use often. These can be catchphrases. You can, please don't think of them as taglines, but your tagline is a viable option for here. Catchphrases or word combinations that you tend to use. If you have an existing style guide for your brand, that's a good place to go look for these, because there's likely words in there that we never use this word, we use this word instead. You're going to want to provide that as well. And then we are on to step 4, all about the client. We all know that that's really what it comes down to. Knowing, the better you know your audience, The more you can tell AI about them, the more focused that content is going to be. Um, so yes, demographics, but really go as far as you can into motivations, challenges, aspirations. If you can write a description of them, tell a story about them. Um, any detail that you can put behind your ideal client, pick one, do it for your absolute ideal client. I understand that most of us have different audience segments. We have multiple ideal clients, but think about the kind of content you're going to make. If you're going to focus on a segment, let's describe it and how is it different from the others. So, ideal client, other segments that you may need to communicate with, describe them and describe what makes them different from each other as far as your messaging or any of the applications of your points of view go. Um, one of the knowledge bases that we have out in the world is actually for a mindset coach, a life coach, but I'm trying to simplify things. And she actually managed to put together a 3-page profile of her ideal client. It's a little bit, well, it's a lot of work, but she knows her clients so well that now when she uses her knowledge base, I've seen some of the information between them. And I have a hard time if she hasn't labeled who wrote what. I a little bit have a hard time deciphering which one is which. So as much information as you can give, and it doesn't have to be 3 pages. She did that because she's a mindset coach and she loves detail, and we all love her very much. But you could do something as simple as individuals aged 30 to 50 or navigating career changes, they're seeking clarity and actionable plans to align with their personal goals. You're going to want to go a little bit further than that. That's a really good basic setup for the beginning of your ideal client profile. And then we get to what really makes up the bulk of your knowledge base. Think about those 3 things we've already talked about: your brand guidelines with your mission statement, your tone, your values, your key themes, your ideal client, as if you were building that, like talking to someone about your business. Content library, this is where the bulk of your knowledge base is going to come from, and you're going to need to assemble this from hopefully existing material that you have. I have a personal knowledge base. I also have 2, so the cat&tonic brand knowledge base that we're putting together, and I also have one for another business that we run called Swagline. All 3 of those things are very different. My personal voice is pretty academic when it's not silly. Cat&tonic is a little edgy, very differentiated. So really think about, if you're an entrepreneur, does your brand speak in your voice? Have your blogs done a good job of that? Have your case studies done a good job of that? Your social media examples, etc. Go find the best ones, find the ones you're most proud of, or write some new ones. Hopefully you've got a bunch of this stuff around already. So you're going to pull that together and start to get that organized. When I say case studies, I know often case studies aren't necessarily written in your brand voice, and that's, or as much in your brand voice, and that's okay. The case studies really are to give your AI a good sense of what you do, the outcomes that you look for, because it will start to frame the stories it writes about you and get a better sense of what your business does by actually reading your case studies and how you format them. It does show, I think, again, because of the entire internet, it shows a preference for the challenge solution results, sort of hierarchy in case studies. So that is a good place to start it. It understands what that is. So file formats, we'll spend a little time on this. Universal file formats are great. It'll keep things easy to manage. So docs, PDFs, PowerPoints, JPEGs, PNGs. I want to caution you about PDFs. They are a universal format as far as humans go, but they are encoded in a lot of different ways from every different piece of software that exports them. Um, for example, I have a really great browser plugin that will give me a beautiful, perfect representation of any web page, no matter how long it is, as a PDF. If you've ever tried to do that, you know how difficult it can be. I love this plugin. However, the way it saves PDFs, AI is only able to see extracted text. It can't see the images or the layout. So I've had to find other ways of showing it. A lot of times I will do a screenshot if I need it to see the layout of something and annotate it to say, look at this for layout and imagery, and look at this for the extracted text from it. But for the most part, any of those universal formats, I think we know most AI can't actually see or hear, it can't watch video, it can read transcripts, that kind of thing. So I would encourage, if you've done a lot of speaking, and you're the face of your brand, get transcripts of your speaking engagements and put them in your content library. Make sure you identify who's speaking and where it was and the topic, obviously. But put as much of that in there as you have access to, as you have available. All of it will be useful. And then we're getting on towards the last step. I've got some slides after this about usage and that kind of thing, and then we'll open up to questions. But this is kind of the key part. So once you have written all your stuff down and you've assembled it all, you've got it all hopefully in a folder, and it's fairly well organized, you're going to want to go back through it. So the reason we're excited about these tools is because it can read and react similarly to a human. Like I said, back in the before times, all of a year ago, when you had to feed it databases full of examples, you could come up with some pretty funny errors. I actually managed to make AI think it was a cat one time because my database had cat and tonic labels on everything. That's not likely to happen anymore because you don't need to train it that way, and it is certainly improved in the last year. Um, the problem with it being able to read and react like a human means it's also just as easy to confuse as a human. A good tip, if you don't know if it's going to understand it, if you don't know what your brand voice is, if you're struggling to define your tone, take what you consider your best piece of content, give it to ChatGPT and have it describe what your voice and tone are. And then you should be able from that to modify that so that if it's not on point, if it is on point, you should be able to modify that. So when in doubt, give it little pieces, give your AI tool. ChatGPT is great for that. I know there's a ton of different tools out there, but for that kind of thing, I really think ChatGPT does the best job as far as reading something and creating a summary definition of the information. So let AI help you even with this process. Just make sure you're double checking and that you're comfortable with what it's saying. So these two things are really key as far as I'm concerned. You're going to want to add a rules document where you're speaking directly to AI and you're defining the rules for how it uses your information, what it gives you, and how you want to be interacted with. So if you are in a particularly scrutinized industry, want to make sure that you address that, right? You never use the word best, right? Never use this word. And this can just be bullets. Be sure to ask clarifying questions. Never manufacture information. Never make up stories. And make sure you include in there an instruction to ask clarifying questions when you cannot determine uh, a high quality answer. You can potentially modify the language on that and take it out as you go if it's being too restrictive or you're not getting what you need. But I would start with something like that in. Um, Explain to it how you like to be interacted with. It is weird sometimes to get talked to in your own brand voice, which can happen. I think it would drive me a little crazy if my AI talked to me all the time in the brand voice of my agency. Not that I don't love my agency, because I think the brand voice and all of that is awesome. I just don't want to talk to it all day long when I'm trying to figure out strategy and that kind of thing. And then the next document, after you get your rules listed, and that document you're probably going to replace a couple of times as you play with it. But then do a table of contents after you've consolidated your documents, if you need to, into what is going to be your knowledge base. Um, and keep in mind that different tools allow different kinds and amounts of documents to be uploaded. ChatGPT, there's a limit of 10 that it can kind of hold in its head at once, or that can be uploaded at once, and that it can keep track of at the same time. Claude by Anthropic allows for pretty significantly more than that. Um, Things like Writer or Jasper have sort of specific ways that documents need to be labeled and places they need to be uploaded. I can't go through every single tool. If you've got questions, you've all got my email. I'd be happy to research the ones I don't know about if you want to shoot me an email about that kind of thing after this is over. So once you're organized, do a table of contents, and in that table of contents, list the file name and then just briefly describe what's in there. That's going to help your AI keep things organized for itself, know where to find things when you ask it to go back and reference again, which you will. Trust me. This is a huge shortcut. Like I said, it's going to save you hours and hours and hours of interactions and finding one-off things to show it for as examples, or answering 1,000 questions, or just getting frustrated and giving up because it can't help you in less time than you could just do it yourself. Um, but it is going to take a little bit of work to get there, and totally worth it though. So once you're organized, you've got your rules document for how you want AI to interact, some of the ground rules for how it produces content for you, things it should never ever do. You've got your table of contents that sits at the front and shows it what you're uploading to it. I can show you, obviously, for ChatGPT, it's as easy, seriously, as hitting the paperclip icon. For some other tools, it has a specific brand information and knowledge base place that you can upload into. Some of them will only take X number of characters that you need to copy and paste into their UI. But most of the good ones will allow you to do something. I specifically tilt this towards ChatGPT because I think it does the best job of helping to brainstorm. helping you work through strategy, switching topics, and being able to retain what you're doing, and retain consistency. Uh, So wherever you're going to upload it, I don't work for OpenAI, but I do have a little bit of a plug for ChatGPT just because I think right now it's the most flexible and it's the easiest to train if you're not a trainer from way back. And then you're gonna give it a prompt to introduce it. Think how much it is a drag if somebody just drops, 10 documents on your desk and doesn't give you any context. So you're gonna want to use a clear prompt, and some instructions so that it knows what the heck it is that you're doing. And here is an example. This is the one that I use for my clients. I have them use this to, the first time they go to upload. You should also introduce yourself, put your name in, especially if you've referenced your name in all of the documents. Introduce yourself. I know it can feel weird to people sometimes to interact with, um, a screen like it's a person, but we're all good at that. Um, you don't have to feel like it's real. You don't have to treat it like a human being, but we're all much better at speaking to people than we are in knowing the right words to say to a computer. So introduce yourself, tell it the name of your company, and then tell it what you're giving it and how you want it to retain that information, use it as a reference, and then again, ask clarifying questions if needed. I have seen these, depending on the size and the complexity, especially of the content library, take multiple days to process through. I'd say if it goes over 24 hours, I would stop and ask it if it's having a problem with a particular document. It can get hung up on, again, on PDFs. So you can give it a couple of hours and then ask. Many of them, most of them that I've seen, it gets through processing in 20 minutes to a half an hour. But don't be super surprised if it tells you it's going to take, 4 or 5 hours or whatever to process all of the information, depending on how much there is and how complex your business model or your clients or, multiple segments are. Something to touch on quick is if you are a product-based business, you do want to give it, obviously, your product information. Do it in a spreadsheet, and make sure you include a description of the product and what audience it might be for. So if you've listed your audience segments in your audience documents, use those labels, for which products might appeal to which audience more. Um, but spreadsheets work great for that. I would say as you work with it, you're going to see if you've got any gaps, but otherwise, it's a living document, just like any of your brand documentation might be. Review it, update it as your brand evolves, write that stuff down. Uh, if you have analytics that you can share about particular kinds of content or formats, share that as well. Put an analytics section in your knowledge base and share that. And then I keep a future ideas section just to go, oh, I need to remember to tell, chat this, and I need to document it out a little bit better. So keep it around. Keep a note or whatever on your computer and just capture your inspirations as they come. Quick, just some things that you might run in when you first start using your knowledge base. Uh, you will occasionally find, especially ChatGPT, if your conversation gets really long, if you bounced around topics, it can start to lose focus and it will start to give you really strange answers. I try to keep my conversations, kind of one topic or logically linked topics within one sort of document or chat. So if things start to get real weird, start a new chat, and that will usually correct it. If you're getting answers that are off or inconsistent, remind it, especially if you've been interacting a lot and all of a sudden it isn't using your tone, remind it. Either go reference the knowledge base and try again, or feed it one of the words that you've chosen as a description. Um, rewrite this again with a more approachable take on it. Uh, be clear. Once you've done this and you've really trained it on the ways that you speak, you don't have to worry as much about prompt engineering, but do be clear. Ask it for what you want if you know. And then don't hesitate to nudge it. I sometimes fall into the realm of, yeah, that's great. I'm going to go work with it. If you give it the feedback on why maybe it didn't quite hit, it does retain some of that stuff as you work. So don't be afraid to adjust responses, to nudge it, to tell it what's going on. That brings us to the end. And I'm going to pause here for questions. I've got this scheduled to 3:45, so we've got time for a few. I'm also not running off anywhere right after, so if it runs over, cool. Just wanted to point out, if you haven't gotten the quick start guide downloaded yet, you can run to this URL. You'll also see on there, this isn't a sales pitch, but we do have a premium version of this guide that's got templates for all the things we talked about, more examples, some other tips, and the opportunity to build on a 30-minute chat conversation video chat with me. If you're interested, if you want some help, if you want me to read your knowledge base through, or if you're struggling to understand any of the concepts, I'd be happy to help. So I'm going to go see if there's any questions. There's a red dot. Privacy concerns. That's a good one. So if you have, I'm going to stop sharing. You'll get to see my face. I do not have any privacy concerns because we use a paid version of ChatGPT. So our information isn't used to train models. If you are concerned, I would check with your IT department, and I would shy away from using free tools of any kind if you're concerned about privacy. Check the T's and C's, and you should be okay. I also still hesitate, even though it's not using any of our stuff to train on. I hesitate to give it too much client information. Sometimes we work with clients who wouldn't like it, and we have an AI policy that forbids me from doing it. So in general, I try not to give it too much client information. I'll make up a separate name or something like that. Tara's other question, yes, you totally can have it summarize your voice and tone based on what you've published on your website, blog, social, etc. Absolutely. That is a really good way to get some of this information, and then you can polish it from there to make sure that it's all good. Table of contents sample. Yeah, I can. And yes, SEO rankings can absolutely be affected by using AI content, most especially untrained generic AI content. So doing this is going to get you a long way towards not having that problem. It's going to put you ahead of the game. If you're still worried about it, there's several free kind of content checkers out there that will check and see if it detects AI content. Some of them are not great, but part of the reason for doing this is to give it a very specific voice and tone and point of view, so that you don't run into those problems with SEO. But yes, absolutely, please don't put the generic content on your blog by the thousands of blogs and hope that it's going to help, because it's not. Sorry. Um, Anybody else? Good question. Carly, are you using any humanizers in your workflow near the end to set you up for even more success for your penalties? Humanizers. As far as any contents that's produced, my best humanizer is a human. Um, I again, this gets you so much closer to something that can be published. And like I said, I use a ton for brainstorming. So absolutely read the content, think about it. So I think we all recognize AI content now, stringing a few too many really egregious adjectives together. Um, so I would review it. I would run it through an AI checker. But Carly, did you have other humanizers that you want to talk about? I use humans. I have my copywriters next door and myself, depending on what kind of content it is. Okay. Anybody else? Let me grab a table of contents to see if I. Actually, and I've got your email. I will shoot, and I need to redact the couple of examples that I have because I can't send you client information. Oh, actually, wait. No. I do have it. Sorry, everybody. Okay. Anybody else? And again, if you guys are interested in the premium version of the guide, I will throw the URL in the chat. It's certainly, I think it's worth looking at. It has a lot of great templates on a lot of my more examples of things I've been through, I guess. So I think with the quick start, you're pretty much there. But if anybody wants to take a look, this URL is also where if you will be one of the places where you can watch the webinar on demand. But I will throw that in the chat, and I will hang out for a little bit in case anybody's got any other questions. Otherwise, I want to give a shout out to Carly. Thank you for asking the best question. Also, thank you for promoting it. I think a lot of folks here actually are probably here because of Carly. But thanks for coming, and I will hang out for a little bit. If anybody's got any other questions, feel free to raise your hand and I can unmute you or turn your cameras on or whatever. But thanks for coming.